Here is the strangest secret. We become what we think about. If we think like the 95, we live like the 95. If we think like the 5, we live like the 5. The choice is ours. Today I'll show you how to make that choice. What you will gain in this lesson is the truth that few ever discover. Success is not a matter of luck, education, or background. It is the direct result of your thoughts, your goals, and your daily attitude. If you've ever felt stuck, trapped, or frustrated by following the rules and still coming up short, this message is for you. Because once you understand why 95% fail and how the 5% live, you can begin at once to cross over into that rare minority who enjoy freedom, security, and purpose. Perhaps you've noticed this. You do what you were told, go to school, get a job, follow the crowd, and yet you look around and realize something doesn't add up. The promises of security never came. You work harder, but the results don't change. That gnawing doubt you feel is real. It's the same doubt millions share. And it comes from living by conformity instead of by purpose. The truth is, most people have never learned how to think independently. That's why they fail. But once you see this clearly, you'll never be the same. In this program, we'll explore exactly how to break free from the 95% who conform and drift, and join the 5% who succeed. I'll explain what truly separates winners from the masses, and why success is simply the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. We'll uncover the secret of thought, the power of goals, and the daily habits that quietly build a life of freedom. Along the way, I'll show you surprising truths: why competition is an illusion, why conformity is the real enemy, and why your mind properly directed is your greatest asset. Stay with me, because once you grasp these ideas, you'll begin to live in a way that only 5 out of 100 ever experience. Now here's something most people completely miss. We start life believing the odds are in our favor. At 25, we look ahead and think, I've got time. I'll work hard, stay honest, and things will turn out right. And yet the reality is shocking. Imagine 100 men, all starting at 25. They're full of energy, full of ambition, certain they'll do something worthwhile. You'd expect the majority to succeed. But by the time those same men reach 65, only 1 will be rich. 4 will be financially independent. 5 will still be working. And 54 will be broke, dependent on others for the necessities of life. That means 95% fail. Only 5% make it. Now stop and think about that. Why is it, when they all began with the same hope, the same ambition, and the same opportunities, that so few reached the goal? What happened to the sparkle in their eyes at 25? What became of their plans, their dreams, their intentions? The tragedy isn't that people don't want success. Almost every one of those 100 men wanted it. The tragedy is that 95 of them ended up living lives of quiet desperation, and they didn't fail because they lacked brains, or talent, or opportunity. They failed because they drifted with the crowd. Picture this: a ship leaving harbor. One has a captain, a crew, and a definite destination. The course is charted, the time of arrival is known. That ship will arrive where it's supposed to, 9,999 times out of 10,000. Now take another ship, identical in size and build, but give it no crew, no captain, no destination. Just turn it loose. What happens? At best, it drifts aimlessly until it sinks or it crashes on some deserted shore. And that's exactly what happens to the 95%. They start without a destination. They never decide where they want to go. They simply join the long line of others who are drifting too. And here's the truth that few people ever stop to recognize. Conformity, simply doing what everybody else is doing without knowing why, is the great enemy of success. It's not laziness, it's not bad luck, it's not even a lack of education, it's conformity, following the crowd because it seems easier than thinking for yourself. And that's why so many end up broke at 65 in the richest land that ever existed. Now, I want you to notice something about this picture. If the odds are 95 to 5, you don't have to fight the whole world to succeed. You only have to stop doing what 95% are doing. You only have to refuse conformity. When you set a course, when you decide on a destination, you instantly put yourself in the top 5%. It's that simple, and it's that rare. But here's what makes this so urgent. Getting this wrong doesn't just mean missing out on a little extra income. It means reaching the end of your working life with nothing to show for it. It means depending on someone else for food, shelter, and survival. That's the price of drifting. But getting it right means freedom. It means independence. It means reaching your later years with security, with choices, and with the satisfaction of knowing you lived as you intended. And that's powerful enough on its own. But combine this realization with what I'm about to share next, and you'll see the real culprit behind the 95%. Because the opposite of courage in our society isn't cowardice, it's conformity, and understanding that will change the way you look at everything. Here's something that may surprise you. The opposite of courage in our society is not cowardice, it's conformity. Cowardice is easy to spot, it's obvious when someone runs from a challenge or shrinks back from danger. But conformity is much more subtle and far more dangerous. Conformity is simply doing what everyone else is doing without asking why. It's following the crowd because it feels safe, because it feels comfortable, because you fear standing out. And yet it is conformity, not cowardice, that explains why 95% of people fail to achieve the success they wanted when they began. Think about it. From the time we're children, we're taught to sit still, to raise our hands, to wait for permission. We're told what to study, what grades to pursue, what jobs to take. We're trained not to think too much for ourselves, but to fit in, to go along. And then one day we wake up as adults, wondering why life feels so empty, why our days are filled with obligations that don't excite us, why our work seems meaningless. We wonder why the rewards we were promised never came. It isn't because we're incapable. It isn't because the system is against us. It's because we fell into the trap of conformity. We let the world tell us how to live instead of deciding for ourselves. Now, you may ask, but isn't conformity necessary? Doesn't society need rules and order? Of course it does. But there's a world of difference between cooperation and conformity. Cooperation is when free men and women choose to work together toward a common goal. Conformity is when people surrender their judgment and imitate others without knowing where those others are going. One builds civilizations, the other destroys lives. And most people, without even realizing it, choose the second. They wake up every morning, get dressed, drive to work, sit in traffic, punch a clock, and do it all again tomorrow, not because they've chosen this life deliberately, but because everyone else is doing it. They think, this must be the way, but it isn't. Consider this. In a survey of working men, most couldn't answer the simple question, why do you work? Why do you get up in the morning? 19 out of 20 had no idea. Their only answer was, everyone else does. And there you see conformity in its purest form. Men and women with enormous potential, with the mind to create, the ability to contribute, the imagination to build something magnificent, living like gears in a machine, repeating the same motion every day, without ever asking where it leads. This is the great enemy, not lack of education, not lack of talent, but the willingness to drift, to conform, to never stop and ask, is this what I really want? And here's where courage comes in. Courage is not about charging into battle or performing heroic deeds. Courage is about standing alone if necessary, refusing to accept the default path, daring to think differently when everyone else is content to drift. It's easy to go along. It's hard to stop and question. That's why so few ever do. But the moment you refuse conformity, the moment you say, I will chart my own course, you separate yourself instantly from the 95%. You step out of the crowd and into the small minority who will succeed. Now let me ask you, what's more frightening? To stand apart, to risk being misunderstood, even criticized, but to know where you're going? Or to spend 40 years following the crowd, only to arrive at 65 with nothing to show for it but disappointment? That's the real danger of conformity. It feels safe in the moment, but it's the riskiest gamble of all. It costs you your future. And here's the most important truth. Every person has the power to break free. You don't have to wait for permission. You don't have to be brilliant, or lucky, or born into privilege. You only have to stop drifting. You only have to think for yourself. That single act of courage, thinking independently, deciding your own destination, places you immediately in the 5%. It doesn't guarantee overnight riches, but it guarantees you won't end up like the 95, and that is a guarantee worth seizing. Now, if conformity is the real enemy, then what's the secret weapon of the 5%? What do they know, what do they practice, that lifts them out of the crowd and onto the path of success? That's what we'll uncover next. And once you understand it, you'll see why every achievement, every fortune, every discovery, and every dream fulfilled begins in the very same place. What I'm about to share might seem almost too simple at first, and yet it is the most profound discovery you and I will ever make. Every achievement, every failure, every twist of destiny begins with one invisible force: thought. The greatest men and women of history all agreed on this point, though they lived in different centuries, spoke different languages, and wore different clothes. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, said, "A man's life is what his thoughts make of it." Emerson declared, "A man is what he thinks about all day long." William James, the father of modern psychology, called it the greatest discovery of his generation that human beings can alter their lives by altering the attitudes of their minds. And when you stop to consider it, how could it be otherwise? Everything we see in this world, every building, every bridge, every invention, every piece of art, was first an idea, a thought, before it became reality. Thought is the seed of everything. Now, let's bring this closer to home. Why does this matter to you and me? Because we become what we think about. If our thoughts are dominated by fear, by doubt, by worry, then our lives will reflect fear, doubt, and worry. If our thoughts are filled with faith, with purpose, with direction, then our lives will reflect faith, purpose, and direction. That is the law of thought. It works as faithfully as the law of gravity. You don't have to believe in gravity for it to work. Step off a roof and you'll fall. Belief or no belief. The law of thought is the same. Think negatively, and your life will take on the shape of your negative thoughts. Think positively and constructively, and your life will grow in the shape of those thoughts. Most people never realize this. They drift through life with their minds filled with worry, criticism, resentment, and fear, and then they wonder why life gives them nothing but frustration. They never connect the dots between the thoughts they carry and the results they live with. Let me give you an image you can hold on to. Imagine your mind as a garden. The soil will grow anything you choose to plant. It does not care what seed you drop into it. If you plant corn, you get corn. If you plant nightshade, a deadly poison, you get nightshade. The soil doesn't argue, it doesn't decide, it doesn't choose. It simply returns what you give it. The human mind is like that soil. Feed it good, healthy seeds, thoughts of courage, ambition, service, love, and you'll reap a harvest of success and happiness. Plant weeds, thoughts of fear, envy, self-pity, anger, and you'll reap a harvest of failure and misery. The soil doesn't care, and neither does the mind. It always returns what you plant. The responsibility lies entirely with us. Now consider the consequences of misunderstanding this law. If you allow weeds to grow unchecked in a garden, soon the flowers are choked out, the fruit withers, and the garden becomes a wasteland. If you allow negative thoughts to dominate your mind, soon your ambitions die, your courage withers, and your life becomes barren. This is why so many of the 95% never succeed. They've planted weeds for so long they don't even recognize them as weeds anymore. They accept fear as normal, worry as inevitable, failure as unavoidable. They never learn that by guarding the thoughts they allow to take root, they could change everything. But when you get this right, when you deliberately and persistently choose the right thoughts, the effect is astonishing. Suddenly, obstacles that once seemed immovable begin to shrink. Suddenly, opportunities you never noticed before appear right before your eyes. You find yourself calmer, more focused, more confident. And the world seems to change around you, though the truth is that it is you who have changed. The law of thought works quietly, invisibly, but relentlessly. And once you understand it, you hold in your hands the master key to success, happiness, and peace of mind. Now, this is powerful enough on its own. But there's another step, one most people overlook. It's not just that thoughts shape our circumstances. It's that we are today the sum total of every thought we have allowed to dominate our minds up to this moment. And that brings us to the next truth, perhaps the most sobering and the most liberating that you and I must face if we want to escape the 95%. You are today exactly what you have been thinking about up until now. That may sound almost too simple to be true, but pause with me for a moment and really let it sink in. Everything you are, the way you live, the conditions you experience, the level of success you enjoy, or the lack of it, all of it is the direct result of what you have been allowing to dominate your mind day after day, year after year. Your present circumstances are not accidents. They are the harvest of thoughts planted long ago, tended in silence, and finally brought to fruition in your outer world. Look around you. Your home, your work, your income, your relationships, these are nothing more than mirrors, faithful reflections of what has been happening in your inner world. And the sobering truth is this: if you don't like what you see, it can only mean you have been planting the wrong thoughts, tolerating weeds where you should have been cultivating flowers. Now, most people never stop to recognize this connection. They live in reaction, not in creation. When something goes wrong, they blame circumstances. They say, if only I had more education, if only I had more luck, if only the breaks would come my way. They believe their lives are shaped by forces outside of themselves, by politics, by the economy, by fate. They never learn that the real shaping force has been inside them all along. And so they drift. They let whatever thoughts happen to cross their minds settle in and take root. They allow fear to dictate their decisions, doubt to drain their courage, envy to poison their vision. They're like gardeners who never bother to check what is growing in their soil, surprised year after year when their fields yield nothing but thorns. But the 5%, the rare ones who succeed, know something different. They know that guarding the mind is the highest responsibility a person has. They understand that thoughts, repeated and believed, become convictions, and convictions turn into actions, and actions repeated form habits, and habits shape destiny. They refuse to let just any thought drift across their minds unchallenged. They ask themselves, does this thought serve my purpose? Does it lead me closer to the life I want, or further away? And if the answer is no, they cast it out like a poisonous seed. The 5% keep their mental gardens weeded. They water only what they want to grow. That is why they live with purpose, while the rest drift without direction. Now think about the staggering implications of this. If you are today the result of what you have been thinking, then your future will be the result of what you begin to think from this moment on. In other words, you can change your destiny simply by changing the content of your thoughts. No one can stop you from doing it. No one can do it for you either. The responsibility is yours, and yours alone. That is both the burden and the glory of being human. You can begin today to think differently, to deliberately choose the images and ideas you want your mind to dwell upon. And by doing so, you can chart a new course for your life as surely as a captain at sea plots a fresh heading across the open water. So let me ask you plainly, what are you allowing yourself to think about daily? When you wake up in the morning, do you fill your mind with worry about bills, complaints about work, gossip about others? Or do you feed it with visions of what you want to achieve, with gratitude for what you already have, with determination to keep moving forward? Because one of those patterns leads you into the 95% who fail, and the other places you firmly among the 5 who succeed. The choice is yours, every hour of every day. You cannot stop thoughts from passing through your mind, but you can decide which ones you will hold on to, which ones you will water, and which ones you will starve of attention until they wither away. And here lies the great turning point in life. The day a man or woman realizes with complete clarity that they are not victims of circumstance but authors of their own story, that day marks the beginning of success. For the first time they understand that they hold the pen, that they can rewrite the script, that they can tear up the old story of limitation and draft a new one of possibility. It all begins and ends with thought. And when you seize that truth, when you really accept it, the world opens up before you in ways you never dreamed possible. Now, if we become what we think about, the most urgent question becomes, what should we think about? What thoughts are worthy of dominating our minds? That's the next step, and it takes us straight to the most powerful tool of all, the ability to set clear, definite goals. Because without a goal, thought wanders aimlessly. With a goal, thought becomes a laser, cutting through obstacles, lighting the path ahead. And that is where we'll go next. Here's a truth that explains more failure than almost any other. Most people have no clear goal. They wake up, they go to work, they busy themselves with endless activity, but ask them directly where they're going and why, and you'll find there's no answer. They haven't decided. They've mistaken movement for progress, routine for purpose, busyness for achievement, and because they haven't chosen a definite destination, they simply drift wherever the currents of circumstance carry them. And as the years pass, they find themselves stranded, bewildered, wondering how life slipped away. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't that the world was unfair. It was that they never set a course. Picture again that ship leaving harbor. When it has a captain and a crew, when its destination is charted, it will almost always arrive precisely where it's intended. The sea may be rough, storms may come, winds may blow, but with a definite destination, the ship adjusts, corrects its course, and keeps moving toward port. Contrast that with a ship turned loose with no captain, no crew, no chart, no port of call. Where does it end up? At best, drifting aimlessly until it sinks or runs aground. That ship without a destination is a perfect picture of the 95% of people who fail. They never decided where they were going. They set sail with no destination in mind, and when you don't know where you're going, any road will do, and you'll most likely end up nowhere at all. Now ask yourself, why does this happen? Why do so many fail to set goals? It isn't because they don't want success. Almost everyone wants to be happy, prosperous, secure. It's because they've never been shown the importance of a clear, specific aim. Schools train us to memorize facts, to pass tests, to fit into systems, but they rarely teach us the one lesson that determines everything. Decide what you want, and then go after it with everything you have. And so, most people leave school and simply take the first job offered or the first one that pays the bills, and then they stay. They never stop to ask if this path leads where they want to go. They're content to earn a paycheck, but they never realize that without a goal, they've chained themselves to a treadmill. They're running, working hard, sweating, but they're going nowhere. And here is the consequence of drifting. Time passes, whether you're moving toward something or not. 10 years go by, then 20, then 40. One day a man looks back and says, "Where did it all go? How did I get here?" And the answer is simple. He drifted. He never chose a destination. He let circumstances, chance, and other people's decisions carry him, and he ended up where drifting always ends, disappointed, dependent, unfulfilled. That's the tragedy of the 95%. They don't fail to reach their goals. They fail because they never had goals in the first place. But notice the other side. The moment you set a clear goal, everything changes. Suddenly your daily actions have meaning. The same job, the same commute, the same hours, all of it feels different, because now it's part of a journey leading somewhere. Obstacles no longer stop you, they simply make the trip more interesting. Problems are no longer reasons to quit, they're challenges that test your determination. A man with a goal wakes up differently. He moves with intention. He has a reason to work, a reason to learn, a reason to improve, and because he knows where he's going, he reaches it with a certainty that seems almost magical to those who never set a destination of their own. Now, let's be clear. A goal doesn't mean a vague wish, like, "I want to be happy," or "I want to be successful." Those aren't goals, they're daydreams. A goal is definite, it's specific, it's something you can write down, something you can describe in detail, something you can measure progress toward. Without that definiteness, the mind has nothing to focus on, nothing to aim at, nothing to pull it forward. And when the mind has no aim, it drifts. And when it drifts, it fails. So ask yourself right now, where are you going? Can you describe it in a single clear sentence? If not, you are drifting, and drifting always ends the same way. But the good news is that the moment you decide, the very moment you set a goal, you step out of the 95% and into the rare company of the 5. You take control of the rudder of your ship, and from then on, no matter how rough the seas, you will keep moving toward port. And that brings us naturally to the next step. If drifting is fatal and goals are essential, then we must ask, what kind of goal is worthy of our lives? What kind of aim should we set? That's the question we'll tackle next, because once you see it clearly, you'll understand why success is not what most people think it is. Now here's the part that most people never understand. It isn't enough just to have a goal. The world is full of men and women who are busy chasing goals that aren't truly theirs, chasing money for the sake of money, chasing approval for the sake of fitting in, chasing whatever happens to be popular at the moment, and even when they get it, they find themselves restless, dissatisfied, searching for something else. You see, the secret is not just in having a goal. The secret is in having a worthy goal, an ideal that is big enough, important enough, meaningful enough to give your life shape and direction. That's what I mean when I define success as the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Success is not a place you arrive at. It's not a finish line, not a certain balance in the bank, not applause or fame. Success is the steady, deliberate movement towards something you have deliberately chosen as worthwhile. It's the journey itself, and the worthiness of the journey that makes the difference. Think of it this way: a teacher who loves teaching, who pours herself into her students because that is what she has chosen to do, is every bit as successful as a great surgeon who operates at the top of his profession, or a writer who brings forth words that stir the heart. A mother who has chosen to raise her children with devotion is a success. A small businessman who runs his shop with integrity, serving his community, is a success. In each case, the key isn't the size of the goal or the money attached to it, but whether it is a worthy ideal, something chosen deliberately and pursued progressively. That's why you'll often meet people who have accumulated wealth and yet feel empty, and others who have modest means but radiate satisfaction. One set pursued an unworthy aim, perhaps borrowed from someone else's expectations. The other set their own ideal, lived by it daily, and therefore succeeded. This is why it's so important to pause, to reflect, to ask yourself honestly, what do I truly want? Not what do my parents want for me, not what does society expect of me, not what looks impressive on the surface, but what do I, in the quiet of my own heart, know to be right? This is not a question to answer in haste. It's a question to sit with. But once the answer comes, once you see it clearly, that becomes your worthy ideal, and from that moment forward, you are a success. You may not yet have the house, the car, the career you envision, but if you are moving toward it daily, you are successful now. And that realization alone can transform how you live, because you stop measuring yourself by where you stand compared to others, and you start measuring yourself by whether you are true to your own chosen path. And here's a simple practice that can make this real. Write down your goal. Take a card, a piece of paper, anything you can carry with you, and write in clear words the one thing you want most. Make it definite, make it vivid. And then, carry that with you. Look at it often. Think about it daily. When doubts come, when setbacks appear, when you feel tired or discouraged, pull it out and remind yourself, this is my destination, this is where I'm headed. That one act, writing down your worthy ideal and keeping it before you, has changed more lives than almost anything else I know, because it takes your dream from a vague wish floating in your mind and nails it down in the real world. It becomes a compass. And with that compass in hand, every decision becomes simpler. Does this take me closer to my ideal or further away? If closer, do it. If further, don't. Life begins to align itself when you live by such clarity. Now, notice what happens when you put this into practice. Suddenly, small distractions lose their power. Suddenly, the gossip at work, the petty complaints, the endless busy work of others no longer pulls you off track. Why? Because you know where you're going. You're moving toward a worthy ideal. And that clarity puts you instantly in the 5%. It's what most people never do. They never decide, they never write it down, they never choose. And so they drift. But not you, not if you take this step. And here's the beauty of it. Your goal doesn't have to be grand in the eyes of the world. It only has to be grand in your eyes. It only has to be worthy of you, worthy of the time and life you will invest in it. The world might not understand at first. They may criticize, they may laugh. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that it is your chosen ideal, and that you pursue it steadily, progressively, with faith and with persistence. So now we've established something powerful. Drifting leads to failure. A goal gives direction. A worthy ideal gives meaning. But here's the next great truth. Goals alone are not enough. You can have the clearest map, the most accurate compass, and the finest ship, But if your attitude is poor, you'll never reach port. Attitude is the determining factor. And attitude, as you'll soon see, is the magic word. Now here's a truth that will change the way you see yourself and the world around you. Life is not so much a matter of what happens to us as it is a matter of how we respond, and that response is governed entirely by our attitude. Attitude is the magic word. It is the one thing we carry with us everywhere, the one constant companion we cannot escape, the one force that shapes every experience and every relationship we will ever have. And the astonishing thing is this: life always mirrors back to us the attitude we project. It is as if the world were one vast echo chamber, and whatever note we send out, whatever chord we strike within ourselves, comes back to us multiplied. If we go through our days with resentment, anger, suspicion, and gloom, we will find those very things reflected back in our circumstances, in the faces of the people we meet, in the opportunities that either appear or disappear before us. But if we walk through life with gratitude, with expectancy, with enthusiasm, with good cheer, the world reflects those as well. People respond to us differently. Circumstances seem to arrange themselves more favorably. Doors open that once remained shut. It's not magic, it's not mystery, it's simply the law of cause and effect operating in the field of human relationships. Let me illustrate this with a story. Some years ago, a man and his wife retired and moved to a pleasant neighborhood. They had planned the move for years, dreaming of the sunshine, the quiet streets, the chance to fish and garden, but after several months the wife grew restless and unhappy. She complained that the people there were cold, unfriendly, that she hadn't been invited into the community. She longed to return to the town they had left behind. The husband couldn't understand it. One day, a neighbor explained it to him in the simplest terms. "Your wife has stayed in the house, waiting for others to come to her. But she has never gone to them. She hasn't smiled first, she hasn't shown interest in them, she hasn't taken the first step. And so they have assumed she prefers to be left alone." You see, the community was simply reflecting her own attitude back to her. The mirror was perfect. The unfriendly atmosphere she complained of was nothing more than the echo of her own withdrawn manner. The moment she changed, the moment she smiled, reached out, showed warmth, the neighborhood would mirror that back to her as well. And this is how life works for every one of us. Our environment is a mirror of our attitude. If you want to know how you're coming across, look at the reactions of others. If people seem cold, hostile, indifferent, it may be that you are projecting coldness, hostility, or indifference without even realizing it. If you want more warmth, give more warmth. If you want more kindness, show more kindness. If you want more enthusiasm and encouragement, radiate enthusiasm and encouragement yourself. The mirror never lies. It always reflects what you send. Now think of the stakes here. A poor attitude can cost a man his job, his promotion, even his marriage. It can close doors, strain friendships, and poison opportunities before they ever bloom. And yet most people never examine their own attitude. They move through life blaming circumstances, blaming others, blaming fate, never realizing that they are carrying with them the very cause of their troubles. They want the world to be friendly while they scowl at it. They want recognition while they offer none. They want prosperity while they radiate defeat. And the world, like a faithful mirror, obliges them every time. On the other hand, a good attitude has power beyond measure. It makes a person magnetic. It draws people in. It creates goodwill, loyalty, and opportunity. You've noticed this, haven't you? There are some people you simply enjoy being around. They light up a room. They make others feel important. They bring energy wherever they go. That's attitude. And the higher you go in any field, the more you'll find that the people at the top are the ones with the best attitudes. Success doesn't give them that attitude. No, it's the other way around. Their good attitude brought them success. So what does this mean for you and me? It means that if we want to change our lives, we don't have to wait for the world to change. We don't have to wait for others to behave differently. We only have to change ourselves. We only have to decide that from this day forward we will project the kind of attitude we want reflected back. It's simple, but it isn't always easy, because it requires us to take responsibility. It requires us to admit that if things are not as we would like them to be, the fault may not lie outside us, but within us. But once we accept that, We hold the key to transformation. We stop being victims and start being creators. We stop reacting and start directing. And that, more than anything else, determines whether we will remain with the 95% who fail or join the 5% who succeed. Now, understanding that life is a mirror is only the first step. The next step is learning how to deliberately cultivate the kind of attitude that ensures success, how to build into ourselves the habit of gratitude, expectancy, and enthusiasm so that they become second nature. That's what we'll look at next, because once you master the art of a success attitude, you'll find that life itself begins to move in your favor. Now that we see how life reflects our attitude back to us like a flawless mirror, the question becomes, how do we shape and maintain the kind of attitude that guarantees success? Because attitude isn't something that just happens to us. It isn't a random mood, like the weather changing from sun to rain. Attitude is something we choose, something we build, something we cultivate daily, like a farmer tending his crops. And here is the truth. Just as the farmer knows his harvest depends entirely on what he sows, we must recognize that our harvest in life, our relationships, our opportunities, our prosperity depends entirely on the seeds of attitude we plant each day. The first, and perhaps the most powerful seed, is gratitude. Gratitude is the recognition that we already live in the midst of abundance. It is the awareness that each new morning is a gift, that each breath is an opportunity, that each person we meet is a chance to give and receive value. Gratitude turns what we have into enough and more than enough. It shifts our focus from what is missing to what is present, from lack to plenty, from complaint to appreciation. And the extraordinary thing is that when we carry an attitude of gratitude, life seems to respond by giving us even more to be grateful for. People are drawn to those who radiate thankfulness. Circumstances align in favor of the man who appreciates what he has, and most important of all, gratitude protects us from the bitterness and envy that poisons so many lives. The 95% complain about what they lack. The 5% give thanks for what they have, and in doing so, they set in motion a chain of blessings that multiplies without end. The second essential seed is expectancy. Expectancy means approaching each day with the quiet confidence that good things are on their way. It doesn't mean ignoring problems. It doesn't mean pretending life is perfect. It means believing, deep in your bones, that no matter what comes, opportunities are hidden in it, and that you are equal to the task. Expectancy is what lifts a man's head when others hang theirs. It is what keeps a woman pressing forward when others give up. It's the inner conviction that tomorrow holds promise, that effort will be rewarded, that life itself is tilted in your favor if you keep faith. And once again, life reflects that expectancy right back to us. People who expect success tend to get it. People who expect failure tend to find it. The world is a looking glass, and it hands us back the picture we carry inside. The third seed is enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is more than energy, more than cheerfulness. The word comes from the Greek entheos, meaning the God within. Enthusiasm is the expression of the divine spark that lives in each of us. It's the excitement that comes from knowing you are moving toward your ideal, the joy of progress, the delight in being alive and able to serve. Enthusiasm is contagious. It inspires confidence. It opens doors. When a man approaches his work with enthusiasm, even the most ordinary tasks take on dignity and meaning. And when a woman lives with enthusiasm, she inspires her family, her friends, her community. People want to be near enthusiasm because it reminds them of what is possible. It awakens in them the same spark. Now, how do we cultivate these qualities, gratitude, expectancy, enthusiasm, so that they become not just passing moods but permanent parts of our character? The answer is daily practice. Just as the body grows strong through daily exercise, the attitude grows strong through daily attention. Begin each morning by setting your attitude. Before you step into the day, pause and choose. Today I will be grateful. Today I will expect the best. Today I will bring enthusiasm into all I do. Say it aloud if you must. Write it down if it helps. But make the decision before the world makes it for you. Because if you begin each day in neutral, letting your environment dictate your mood, you'll soon find yourself pulled down by the complaints, the fears, the negativity of others. Set your attitude first, and the day will align with it. Here's another simple but powerful practice. Treat every person you meet as the most important person in the world, because to them, they are. Nothing warms the heart faster than genuine recognition. Nothing builds goodwill more quickly than sincere respect. When you treat others as important, they respond in kind. They reflect back the honor you show them. And in time, you find that you have built a network of allies, friends, supporters, and opportunities, all by the simple habit of treating others as valuable. Contrast this with the man who ignores others, who treats them as inconveniences or obstacles. He finds doors closed, conversations short, opportunities few. Again, life is a mirror. So we see that building a success attitude is no accident. It is deliberate. It is daily, and the payoff is immense. With the right attitude, you can turn setbacks into stepping stones, critics into teachers, obstacles into opportunities. With the wrong attitude, even the best opportunities will wither in your hands. The difference between the 95 and the 5 often comes down to nothing more complicated than this. One group carries attitudes of defeat, resentment, and complaint. The other carries attitudes of gratitude, expectancy, and enthusiasm. And because the mirror of life never fails, each group receives exactly what it projects. Now, once we have fixed our attitude, we possess something extraordinary, but we must still face the long test of time, because success does not come in a moment. It comes through persistence, through holding fast to the course when others quit, through staying true when results are not yet visible. And that is where we turn next, because persistence is the rare quality that carries the 5% forward when the 95 fall away. Now here is something that separates the rare 5% from the multitude of the 95 more than perhaps anything else: persistence. Persistence is the ability to keep moving steadily toward your goal, long after the initial excitement has faded, long after the novelty has worn away, long after circumstances have conspired to discourage you. You see, beginning is easy. Starting out on a new project, a new resolution, a new dream, anyone can do that. Enthusiasm at the beginning requires no discipline. But staying the course when results are slow, when recognition is absent, when obstacles seem to multiply, that is where most people falter. And yet, it is exactly here, at the point where others turn back, that the path to success begins to open for those who persist. Think of the farmer who plants a field of corn. He covers the seed with soil, waters it, and waits. Weeks pass and nothing appears. The ground looks as empty as the day he planted. A man without persistence would say, "It isn't working, nothing is happening." He might even dig up the seed to check on it, disturbing the process, and in doing so, ruin the harvest. But the persistent farmer understands that growth takes time, that unseen forces are at work beneath the surface, that patience is required before the green shoots appear. And so he tends the field faithfully, day after day, until the first fragile stems break through. And in time, his persistence is rewarded with a full harvest. Success in life is no different. The seeds of effort, discipline, and faith must be planted and tended long before results are visible. Those who lack persistence give up in the waiting, never realizing that their harvest was only a season away. Those who persist live to reap it. Now consider how many dreams have died simply because their owners lacked persistence. A young man begins to learn a new skill, playing an instrument, starting a business, studying a profession, and when the first difficulties arise, he quits. A woman begins to write a book, excited by the first chapters, but when progress slows, she abandons it. Another sets out to improve his health, but when results don't appear quickly enough, he returns to his old habits. Each one had the potential to succeed. Each one could have reached the finish line. But they lacked the rare quality of persistence. They expected results too soon. They mistook temporary delay for permanent defeat. And so they surrendered their dreams, without ever discovering how close they were to success. Persistence, you see, is not about talent. It is not about luck. It is not about being the smartest or the strongest. It is simply about refusing to quit. The world is filled with men and women of great ability who accomplish little, and others of modest ability who accomplish much. The difference is persistence. The first group stops when the going gets tough. The second keeps moving, inch by inch if necessary, but always forward. And because time rewards persistence, the second group inevitably surpasses the first. That is why I call persistence the rare quality. It is not rare because it is difficult to practice. It is rare because so few are willing to practice it. Now let me make this personal. Whatever your goal is, whatever worthy ideal you have chosen, persistence is the price you must pay to reach it. There will be days when you feel tired, when progress seems invisible, when setbacks tempt you to quit. On those days, remember the farmer, remember the seed. Growth is happening beneath the surface, even if you cannot see it. Your persistence is watering the seed, keeping it alive until the moment it breaks through. If you stop, the seed dies. If you persist, the harvest comes. It cannot be otherwise. And here is something else to consider. The world is secretly watching to see if you will persist. Opportunities often appear only after persistence has been proven. Employers, investors, partners, even friends, no one wants to align themselves with a quitter. But when they see that you hold fast, that you continue through discouragement, that you cannot be turned aside by delay or difficulty, then they rally to your side. Persistence not only strengthens you, it attracts others. It builds confidence in your character. It proves that you are worthy of the success you seek. So remember this: talent may open the first door, luck may provide the first chance, but only persistence carries you through to the end. If you have persistence, you need little else. If you lack it, nothing else will do. That is why the 95% fail and the 5% succeed. The 95 begin but do not continue. The 5 begin and never stop. And the difference, though it seems small, is everything. And this leads us naturally to another dimension of success. Persistence alone is not enough. You must also bring value to others through service, and you must use your imagination to see beyond what is, into what could be. Persistence keeps you moving. Service gives you purpose. Imagination shows you the path. And when the three are combined, you become unstoppable. That is where we'll turn next. There is a great truth about life that very few ever discover, and it is this: we are all, in one way or another, in the people business. No matter what profession we choose, no matter what title we carry, no matter how technical or specialized our work may seem, the rewards we receive in life will always be in direct proportion to the service we render to others. Every paycheck, every promotion, every opportunity is nothing more than an echo of service returned to us. If you want to increase your income, increase your service. If you want more opportunity, find ways to create more value for others. It is as simple as that. But here again, simplicity deceives most people. The 95% believe their job is to show up, put in their hours, and collect their pay. They think only of what they are owed. But the 5% think differently. They understand that their job is to give more in value than they take in pay, to make themselves indispensable, to constantly ask, how can I help? How can I contribute? How can I leave this person, this business, this world better than I found it? That attitude alone, carried out daily, is enough to place a person securely in the minority who succeed. Now, consider how powerful this is. Imagine two people doing the same work in the same company. One does only what is required, he puts in his time, avoids mistakes, and nothing more. The other looks for ways to improve the process, to lighten the load of his coworkers, to serve customers more fully. One man thinks only of his paycheck. The other thinks of the people he serves. Which one do you suppose is promoted, recommended, rewarded? Which one do you suppose discovers new opportunities, builds a reputation, and moves upward? The difference is not in the hours they work, it is in the service they render. And here lies the irony. The man who gives the least, always worried about doing more than he is paid for, is the one who remains stuck at the bottom. The man who gives the most, always looking for ways to add value, is the one who rises. The more he serves, the more he earns. The law is as unbreakable as gravity, but service alone is not enough. For service to reach its highest level, it must be joined with imagination. Imagination is the ability to see beyond what is into what could be. It is the faculty that allows us to picture a better way, to envision solutions where others see only problems, to dream of new possibilities before they exist. Every invention, every discovery, every improvement in human life has been the result of imagination, and the same is true in our personal lives. It is imagination that allows us to see ourselves not as we are, but as we could be. It is imagination that lets us rehearse the future, live it in advance, and thereby bring it into reality. The 95% use their imagination only to picture failure, to dwell on fears, to magnify obstacles. They imagine the worst and then live it out. But the 5% use their imagination as a tool of creation. They picture success, they rehearse achievement, they see themselves serving, contributing, prospering, and because the mind moves toward what it dwells upon, those pictures become their reality. Let me give you an example. A small shopkeeper may see only the daily routine of stocking shelves, ringing sales, paying bills. He imagines nothing beyond survival, and so survival is all he gets. Another shopkeeper, faced with the same routine, asks, "How can I make this better for my customers? How can I turn this store into a place people love to visit?" He imagines a brighter layout, friendlier service, new products, unexpected touches of kindness. He sees it first in his mind, then puts it into practice. Customers respond, word spreads, and soon his little shop grows beyond what anyone thought possible. The difference is not luck, not location, not timing. It is imagination applied to service. And what works for a shop works for a life. So I urge you to join these two great forces, service and imagination. Ask yourself daily, what more can I give? What better way can I do it? Imagine new possibilities. Picture yourself as the person who goes the extra mile, who solves problems others overlook, who lifts burdens others ignore. Then, act on those pictures. Do it not for applause, not for immediate reward, but because it is the right way to live, and you'll discover that the rewards will come anyway, and they will come in greater measure than you ever expected. For life has a way of enriching those who enrich others. And here is the most remarkable part. When persistence, service, and imagination come together in one person, they create a force that is unstoppable. Persistence keeps you moving when the path grows long. Service ensures that your movement benefits others and thereby brings you reward. Imagination lights the path, revealing new directions and new opportunities. With these three qualities, persistence, service, and imagination, you hold the keys to a life that cannot fail. And when you live by them, you discover the true meaning of success. So now we've come full circle. We've seen why 95% fail and why 5% succeed. We've seen that the difference is not in intelligence, or in education, or in luck, but in the simple choices of thought, goal, attitude, persistence, service, and imagination. And before we close, I want to bring all of these threads together so that you leave with one clear challenge to carry into your own life. Because knowledge alone will not change you. Action will. And action begins with a decision. And so here we are. We have walked together through truths that explain why 95 out of every 100 people fail to achieve the success they set out for, and why the rare 5% succeed. We've seen that failure is not inevitable, that it is not written in the stars, that it does not come from bad luck or hostile forces. It comes from drifting, from conformity, from neglecting the power of thought, from living without a goal, from carrying a poor attitude, from quitting too soon, from serving too little, from failing to imagine what could be. And we've seen that success, on the other hand, is not reserved for the gifted few, not confined to the lucky, not limited to those born in certain families or with certain advantages. Success belongs to anyone who dares to think independently, who sets a worthy ideal, who guards his attitude, who persists when others quit, who devotes himself to service, and who uses imagination to see beyond the present into the possible. These are not secrets hidden in vaults. They are laws as simple and as certain as gravity, and they are available to you, right now. So let me ask you, where do you stand? Are you willing to remain with the 95%, drifting along with the crowd, letting life push you here and there until one day you wake up to find that the years have slipped by and the dreams have withered? Or will you step into the 5%? Will you take the challenge to govern your own mind, to set your own course, to decide once and for all who you will become? The choice is yours, and no one else can make it for you. Remember this truth. We become what we think about. You are today the sum total of all the thoughts you have allowed to dominate your mind up until now. And tomorrow, and every day that follows, will be shaped by the thoughts you choose from this moment forward. If you want a new life, choose new thoughts. If you want a different destiny, plant different seeds. Guard your mind as you would guard your most precious treasure, because that is exactly what it is. It will give you whatever you demand of it, nothing more, nothing less. And don't forget what success really means. It is not the sudden strike of fortune, not the applause of the crowd, not the possessions you gather. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. The moment you set a clear, worthy goal and begin moving toward it, you are a success. Each day you persist, each day you serve, each day you imagine better ways, you are living in success. The reward is not only in the destination, it is in the journey itself. And what a journey it can be if you choose it with courage and live it with purpose. So here is my challenge to you. Before this day ends, take out a piece of paper and write down one clear, definite goal, one worthy ideal that you are willing to dedicate yourself to. Carry it with you. Read it often. Let it dominate your thoughts. And then begin, no matter how small the step, to move toward it. Do not wait. Do not drift. Begin today. Because once you do, you have already escaped the 95%. You have already joined the rare minority who succeed. And from that moment on, your life will never again be the same. And one more thing, don't stop here. You've taken in these ideas, but the mind, like a muscle, must be exercised daily if it is to remain strong. So, I invite you to join me in the next lesson, where I'll reveal one daily practice so simple, so overlooked and yet so powerful, that it separates those who merely hear these truths from those who live them. It is the difference between knowing the path and walking it. You won't want to miss it. So remember, we become what we think about. Guard your mind. Choose your ideal. Persist in its pursuit. Serve others. Use your imagination. And never forget, success is yours the moment you decide it is.